Welcome to Meet, Act, and Part, a Masonic podcast hosted by Midnight Freemasons Greg Knott, Darin Larners, Todd Creason, and Bill Hostler. The views, opinions and experiences that are expressed by the hosts or guests as individual Freemasons do not reflect the official position of any Grand Lodge, appendant body, or Masonic authority to which the hosts or guests belong. And now on with the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Meet, Act, and Part, episode 53. And we're just kind of titling this, Wrapping It Up. Well, at least for 2022. I am Greg Knott. I am one of your co-hosts to be here with you tonight.
And I am Greg's ever-faithful intern, Darin Laners.
And we're missing Bill Hostler tonight, but Bill is on a cruise. He's headed to the Bahamas, I think. But Bill, we want to wish you a great vacation. And as we watch the forecast, at least here in the Midwest, we're getting a snowmageddon prediction here in a day or two. Bill, I think you made the right choice to get on the boat and have a good time. So hope you, as you listen to this, when you listen to it, you've had a good time. So Darin and I were just sort of kicking around. What do you do on a topic for a wrap up? One thing we were talking about was this episode really wraps up year number 3 for the Meet, Act, and Part podcast. And when we started this, we really literally had no idea where we're going with it. We were just kind of playing around. And it's been amazing how many great guests we've had over the 3 years. The conversations just Bill and Darin and I have had in general. And you just talk about so many different things in that period of time. Of course, you can't help but reflect on society the last 3 years and what's went on with that, with COVID and coming out of COVID. And now, concerns on, the health concerns still haven't went away in society in general. And, what's the long-term impact of those, on Freemasonry? Again, just sort of giving some general observations here. I don't think we've bounced back entirely, as a fraternity. We're slowly getting things cranked back up in regards to in-person meetings and conferences and the such. But there's an awful lot of people that got used to being home, and getting them back out into the lodges, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. It has not just been in lodges. Other groups I'm in that have nothing to do with Freemasonry, we've seen exactly the same thing. People got so used to being on Zoom and things like that they expect it. And so a lot of changes like that out there. So we'll see. I think here we are just a few days before Christmas, and I was in, Champaign, our big town near where I live today, just noticing how many people were in the parking lot of Walmart and Meijer and other places. And I just sat there and watched, and I thought, I think people are getting back to normal. All the things we did of sitting at home, really, I think people have gotten tired of it. And so I'm hoping it's a good sign, and hoping that we're getting reactivated as a society. So, hey, Darin, why don't we start there, and we'll just kind of free flow and see where our conversation heads tonight.
I think you're absolutely right. The fraternity probably is I won't say a direct indicator of where society is, because I'd argue that we're a very disproportionate subset of society, which leans towards probably the boomer generation, if we're going to be quite honest about where we are. I mean, to be quite honest, I think that of the generations that regardless of, I don't want to get into politics, but there was a disproportionate amount of our membership that probably was not happy with some of the rules or guidelines that were put in place. Here, I can only speak here in Illinois, in our jurisdiction. I mean, you remember when we had Most Virtual Brother Oakley on at the time, when COVID was just ramping up, and we kind of had no idea of how long it would go on, and we're still dealing with it. It's just not as publicized as it was, but it's not gone away, and I think we're starting to, as you said, see the slow return to normalcy. I mean, we were talking there for a while about this thing called the new normal. I think that's kind of out the window. I think we're slowly returning to normal, and we'll just kind of wait and see how society reacts. But I think from fraternal standpoint, it seems for the most part business as usual. I don't know that we've, at least in our lodges, lost membership because of COVID. To my knowledge, we've not lost any direct membership because of it, and the people that were coming prior to it are coming back to lodge. It's just the age-old question, honestly, of how do we capture the audience that wasn't showing up to begin with, and especially now post-COVID. What can we do to make Freemasonry more appealing to these people, or is that even a possibility? Because if they weren't coming then, they probably aren't going to come now.
Yeah, not a new problem. Probably maybe a little bit got amplified because of COVID. I think you hit on the main question is, why should they come? What do we do to entice them to come? We've done shows on this and talked about it. So age-old problem. We're not going to give up. I think there's always us that, the 10% or the optimists that show up, and we hope those brothers that, were raised and came for a while and keep paying those dues. We hope to keep seeing them. I know a few locals in our area, when I see them, I invite them back. I don't ever put any pressure on them. That's one thing about it. I think what's different about Freemasonry is, there is no attendance requirements. There's no, absolute expectation. Like in Rotary, when I was in Rotary, there was an attendance expectation, and they made it clear. And so it wasn't a secret. And so, that was just part of the metric. For us, that's not part of the metric. And, do you have to attend meetings to be a good Master Mason? I've seen lots of online discussions on that. No, you sure don't. I think you get more out of it, though, if you come. But, of course, if you come and the lodge, us that are active, have an obligation, of course, to, do things so there's value added. And, of course, we could do, Darin, lots of discussions on that. Darin, and I think our interest, of course, is Masonic education, and education can really run the gamut. Things like this podcast, historical education, there's enlightenment education, philosophical education, just a lot of, different things that you can focus on. And, one thing we did recently at Ogden Lodge, which was the lodge I was raised in, we called on me and said, "Hey, does anybody have education?" I said, actually I do. And I pulled up a blog story written by Todd Creason, founder of the Midnight Freemasons. Well, Todd has, he entered the seminary a couple of years ago and has finished up and actually has just gotten the call for a church. So congrats to Todd. But he had written this piece that was not on the Midnight Freemasons, and it was actually based on a sermon he gave, and it was on character. And so it was, a 5-minute read. And it was funny as I read through that, even though he'd written it, for a church audience, what I pulled out of there was just so many things that were applicable to what the fraternity does. And of course, Todd was there and he didn't know I was going to read it, but we talked a little bit. It's like how much those values cross over. And, our values cross over to many religions. It's not just Christianity. That was the particular focus, but it was really about character and those broad principles that he brought out in this particular piece really got people to talking. And at the end of it, I said, this is what we do if you think about it as a fraternity. we make good men better. Okay, sure, we've all heard that saying, but how do we do that? Well, it can be through the discussions, through setting an example for others, through mentoring, through just conversations, through just being there when, you need a friend to be there, supporting each other. That character development, and Todd and I have long talked about this, is really part of the core, I think, of what we do. There's lots of ways we can do that, but I think that character development is a piece of it. And so, to the point of enticing members to come, think about just that little discussion. And everybody, it wasn't very long, but I could tell that the 10 of us or so in the room took something away from it. And those are the kinds of things that I think can entice people to come, but we have to do them consistently and frequently, and with a purpose. That'll entice some people to come back. Okay. Well, Darin, what else did we do in 2023? Early in the year, I went to Grapevine, Texas. The Shriners had a marketing meeting there, and it was very, very well put on. We have, Darin and I and some others have put together a new shrine club in our area, and so I went down and got some ideas, and we kind of finished up our first full year with the shrine club here recently, and I think it was a good success. We brought in several new members. We had several events that we did. We went to a ball game, had several dinners. And one of the keys, I think, to the club's success is we've included the families. And so we always invite the spouses or significant others to join in on the meetings. And it's been an easy way to enhance Blue Lodge. And people debate whether you should have to be a Mason to be a Shriner. I'm telling you, if you do it right, there's some natural connections there that I think can help build the Blue Lodge membership. So that's something Masonically I worked on in 2022, and I'm actually going to go back to Grapevine in February of 2023 for another series of the meetings. And this one, it's based on membership and marketing, but they've got a whole new focus on it in regards to their speakers and things. And I like going to it because what I can pull out of that is applicable to not just the Shrine or Blue Lodge, but frankly, anything that we're involved in. Because at the end of the day, it is all about meeting people, enticing them to see whatever your particular organization is, what the value of it is, the value proposition is, and to join. And then, of course, for the organization to deliver on that. So that's one of the things I did Masonically this year. Darin, what about you?
Well, we've done a lot. You mentioned the Salt Fork Shrine Club, but we both were invited and joined a CRIF, which I think has been a really eye-opening experience for me personally, and has checked a lot of boxes to fulfill Masonic experience that I don't think some of the other bodies are giving me. So it's been a bonus. Was honored to be chosen to lead the Grand York Rites Chapter's Education Committee for this capitular year. So we started that effort installation was late July of 2023. And I think some of the highlights, or the main highlight I was, in my opinion, we did a virtual festive board the night before Thanksgiving, and it was well attended. I thought it was a really big success. So looking forward to working with the committee to finish out the capitular year 2023. And on the horizon, still trying to plug away at some book ideas and get a book written. I was wanting to get one done in 2022, but was not to be, so that's a goal to get done in 2023. I think one of the main things also is to honestly make some decisions about where our local lodges are headed, and particular St. Joe, which, if you've read any of my articles, it's one of my favorite topics of debate. We just need to do something different there, and I'm not quite sure what, but there needs to be change that happens, because otherwise we're looking probably at consolidating in the next couple of years. I just don't see any other way around it.
Yeah, and it's exactly. I mean, Darin and I are both in that lodge, and if you search through the archives of the Midnight Freemasons 10, 12 years ago, we were really had it going and bringing in lots of guys, and we're doing a lot of activities in town, and we're visible in the community. And for whatever reason, over the last decade, we've slowed down. And when that first initial, wave of energy in 2008 or 9, I think is when it really started, got going, the lodge was in the same shape that it's in now, maybe arguably worse. They couldn't even make quorums. We've done that, which, that's minimum, but we have done it. So we're at that point again. I think in a lot of ways it just exhibits the life cycle of just so many organizations. You come in, you get a lot of energy going, that carries you for quite a while. And, then the people that were putting in a lot of the energy in the beginning, well, they've sort of done their part already. And the new ones are doing some of their part, but it just loses momentum. And so I think that's the challenge of, I think any lodge you could nearly look at in the country over any length of its long history, it's going to have these ups and downs. And so, definitely. And so not ready to give up on St. Joe, I guess probably because part of it was kind of a work of love and labor there a decade ago. And I saw what we got done when we put some energy into it. And I think we can do it again. We just got to focus. So, but yeah, Darin, absolutely. That's one of the things in 23, I think we're going to have some conversations about. And who knows, you might see some more Midnight Freemasons articles on those or a podcast or two. So stay tuned. We'll see how that goes. There's just so many things that we talked about as I looked, over some of our guests from 2022. Early in the year, we had Roger Van Gordon from Indiana, former Grand Master of Indiana. And Roger came on to talk about the project with the Grand Masters group. Of course, the name is escaping me right this second. And all that they're trying to do. So, I mean, I guess I was thinking about Roger, as we're talking about St. Joe here, about reinvigorating craft masonry. And it's this non-ending cycle, again, that we need to go through. And, in conversations I've had with Roger, even outside of the podcast, you just see it, it's things, you swear they're going to die and then they come back. And then, and then it's about on the verge again. And certainly the numbers in masonry, I mean, my gosh, they peaked out at 4 million and they're probably less than 1 million here in the U.S., which, hey, I can't fix that problem. It is what it is. But, I guess there's still enough of us optimists, like I was talking about earlier, that, just don't want to give up. And the reason I don't want to give up is it's not that, I want to sit in another boring business meeting, because I don't. But part of that is when you bring good people in, like somebody brought me in, somebody brought Darin in, we wouldn't have had these experiences had those Blue Lodges not been there and provide the opportunity to walk through the door, or at least initially knock at the door. And so that's always what's bothered me about when a lodge goes dark. And certainly there's a time and a place for that to happen. But once they do, you don't bring in, potentially the next Grand Master 20 years down the road because they never became a Mason to begin with. And though it's not a numbers game, because there is no right amount of Masons except for, a minimum to open a lodge, you do still need fresh guys coming through. Part of it's for the degree work that keeps members engaged. You need those fresh ideas, that fresh energy that walks through, that gives you the inertia to move a lodge along. And you think you need those new perspectives, because after a while, if it's just you and the same 7 to 10 guys, well, your perspective, horizon isn't very wide. And so I always think about that when I think about Roger and some of the programs that he's worked on with the Conference of Grandmasters. Now it came to me. So Roger, we got to have you back on again sometime to get your perspective. So you'll probably get a phone call from us here early in 2023 to do another round. So, here I'm finishing 22. I'm not pessimistic. I'm not unrealistic about some of it, but I see how much good we can do in the world. And I see how much impact that the fraternity made on me. And I've seen it in Darin and so many other people that once that light goes out, it's over. And those people aren't going to get the opportunity. So that's what part of what motivates me is to try to keep going.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to come up with some sort of strategic plan for what's our objective here. And I think we have to have some hard conversations with some members that are near and dear to me personally, but at the end of the day, I think that they may be obstacles to potentially growing membership there, or a reason why guys may not be showing up to the lodge right now. And as difficult as it is for me to say it, I think is a conversation that we probably need to have, just because there seems to be a common denominator that pops up occasionally, and we need to figure it out. And I know this particular common denominator means well, and it's not something that he's doing, I think, purposefully or vindictively. I just think that's how he's made up. But I think that's how he is made up sometimes as an impetus to guys returning to the lodge, because he can be a lot to take in, and he can be very blunt. And I personally don't mind that bluntness, but other guys may have an issue with it, and may feel like I can get this abuse elsewhere. Why do I come to lodge to get it? But it's just I also think that one of the things we need to do is, it can't just be us trying to do the stuff anymore. I think that if we're going to do things, when we have to commit to them and also financially commit to them, and we are great at talking about ideas and very bad about getting them off the ground, because usually when it's talked about, there's not anybody to lead the initiative. And I'm at the point where I've got, and you as well, Greg, we have to prioritize our time and our energy and our effort to what is going to be possible for us to achieve. And but we need some of the other membership to step up, and that's where I think we are in particular lacking, because it's just very difficult to get members engaged to do anything there. And once again, if it's not you or I leading the effort or showing up, I mean, we've had limited success. I will say, we did have a good turnout. Some of the younger guys in August showed up for the festival, and we did the dunk tank, and that was an effort that took a lot of guys to put on, and the young guys stepped up. So I know that we can engage them, but we have to do things that they also are interested in doing, and that's I think where the needs to occur. So I think there's opportunities for us to partner with the Salt Fork Shrine Club to do some events. I still think that we need to just put on a nice dinner for ourselves and have the lodge foot the bill and go to a local restaurant and get a speaker or have some toasts or show people, that we're not just stuffy business meetings, and that there's opportunity for, that sort of, I won't say formal dining experience, but that we can have festive boards and we can do things outside the lodge and engage the community while doing so, and hopefully pique some guys' interest. But I don't know. I've got some ideas. I think we just need to sit down and formulate. What are three things that we would like to do this year with St. Joe, and this is what this is the effort, and this is the money, and there's the old saying, you have to spend money to make money, and I think especially in Freemasonry that has become truer and truer, because I just don't, the type of Masonic experience that I've learned to enjoy are those festive boards, or those educational conferences where you have some of the top educators or authors or Masonic celebrity, if you will, coming in and getting guys that are all like-minded together and having these experiences with them. And that's it's not to be understated. And I just if anything, just even the virtual festival board that we had shows that the interest is there. And I think a lot of guys, and I think a lot of guys that aren't Masons might just be interested in seeing what that's about, just because it is, I think, very unique experience to not only Freemasonry but our society in general. I mean, other than honestly a wedding reception, that's the only other, I think, close thing that I could closely tie, where you have structured toasts and you have kind of a structure around that. So I don't know. I'm spitballing here, but I think that we need to get this plan and engage the membership and put it into action, and once again not have us be the main contributors. I'm more than willing to do my share to help, but I leading this effort, to me, it needs to come from other people, and some of the people that haven't in the past stepped up. So
I'm sure we could almost just put any lodge name in that discussion we just had, and you could have a lot of people shaking their heads saying, yep. At the end, it's like, I wonder, well, it takes leadership and initiative. And like you say, there's got to be more than one or two people, because they're not sustainable over time, because they run out of energy. And, in terms of programmatic things, I don't know if a lot of guys even know how to do it. It is, it's, and I'm not even talking about getting into the deep, philosophical Masonic educational things. That's one thing, but I think there's just a lot of people, a lot of lodges, they really don't know where to start, which almost seems ironic when this day and age, the last 10 or 15 years, the absolute explosive growth of online Masonic resources, blogs and podcasts and YouTube channels. I mean, you name it. Somebody like Darin and Bill and I, we've started, a podcast or whatever it is. It's out there. And so there's simple resources. I just think a lot of people, they don't know where to start. And then Darin, I think to your point of the analogy I'll use is like the little old church lady that controls the whole congregation, because she doesn't want to see anything change. And yet people are afraid to say something to her on the premise that she might get upset. Yet the little old church lady is the one that's holding it back from the change that it's going to need to thrive or survive at the minimum. And I think about this a lot, is that people like to hold on to what they know. And I think that's especially true as you get older, and we're definitely an older age demographic. But if you don't change, even what you've got's not going to survive as it is, because, people come and go, or they pass away, or they, move on with their interests. So if you're not constantly reinvigorating what you got, you're not even going to hold on to what you have. And I think, a lot of groups suffer from this, and we've seen it in our lodges, that if we can't move on from that and be able to question it and say, look, if we don't do something different or just do something, we're not going to be here in 2 years. And, the things I talked about earlier about the new opportunities for others to enter the fraternity, not going to happen because the doors are shut and there's a condo in your building instead of the lodge hall or whatever it is. So there's, a lot of things in 23 we'll talk about to come with that. So I think, Darin, maybe one of our things we'll do is sporadically, as we do our podcasts in 23, we'll give some updates, because I think if nothing else, it keeps us kind of on the queue of saying, hey, what are you guys doing about it? Even if you don't want to be in charge of everything, what are you doing? And so I think we could give our listeners a little bit of an update of how the lodge is doing and what some of the things we're going to do to have those conversations, and how do you start those conversations. So we'll keep you posted on that. So, yeah, Darin, I thought the Royal Arch event we had the night before Thanksgiving with the festive board and the toasts went extremely well. I think, Darin, also to your point about visibility in the community. And we've started to do this with the Shrine Club. Shrine Club's different, obviously, than the Blue Lodge. But yet, people are starting to see, at least we're there. We hold our meetings in the restaurant, right in the restaurant. Everybody sees us. We're wearing the fezzes. And there's, again, no reason we couldn't do that with the Blue Lodge and, wear suits that night and have a speaker. And everybody's going to like, oh, I didn't even know they were still around. And then, that kind of a conversation. So probably enough about St. Joe Lodge, but we will keep you updated. So what else in 23? Well, recently, and I had one of my cousins passed away, and he just want to tell his story. Randy joined a small lodge in Broadlands, Illinois in 1979, I believe, and was a member for about 15 years and ended up demitting in 1994. Fast forward to 2020, and he had told me, and eventually got a hold of Todd Creason, says, I really want to be back in Blue Lodge and reinstate my membership. So Randy did, and he came, to Ogden Lodge practically every month. And he just so loved to come, and he was so glad to be back, and he just enjoyed the conversations in, the dinners we'd have beforehand, and stick around and have some conversations, after the meeting. He was a steward. He was somebody, he says, I can't learn ritual, but he was faithful and he came. And he recently passed away, had gotten sick and just, succumbed to the health issues there. But we had his Masonic funeral recently. And it was invigorating to see how many guys were there, about 25. And it got me thinking that Randy's dad, Tuck, Earl, his dad, my uncle, was the whole reason I joined Masonry to start with, because when my great uncle died, they had a Masonic funeral for him. And it really spurred me to say, I just finally need to do that. I thought about it forever, just hadn't taken the initiative to do it, and got a petition and filled it out. And I just thought, it was a good tribute. I played the secretary in Randy's funeral and read his Masonic obituary, and I just thought it was just full circle in a way for me, especially being a family member, to be able to do that. But the even more cool part is his son, Chuck, is coming through and getting his degrees. And so he and I spoke about some of the Masonic service and the getting things ready as we prepared to do Randy's funeral. And, and I thought, there's Chuck. He's probably fourth or fifth generation now on his particular side of the family that's come through the Blue Lodge. And but Chuck told me, he goes, I'm pretty sure my dad had bought me an apron to give to me when I was going to be raised. And we're getting ready to do his third degree here in the next few weeks. And ended up, I found that apron the other night at Ogden Lodge. I didn't know Randy had left it there. And so it was on the steward's chair. So after the meeting, we took Randy's apron. It was a past master apron that he had purchased. And we put it on the back of the steward's chair, gathered around the chair, and we had a moment of silence for Randy. And, I thought, again, in a way, that's what the fraternity is, just a simple act. And that was the same night we had the character discussion. And that's what we do. And again, sometimes you don't have to have these deep philosophical conversations, but it's the dignity. It's the right thing to do to remember that brother. And it was a small tribute, but I think it really, to me, spoke to what this fraternity does, is that we come and support each other and in time of need. So if you've never seen a Masonic funeral, I encourage you to participate one. Even if you don't know the brother, you're always going to be welcome at that service if you're a Freemason. And sometimes they're lightly attended and sometimes they're heavily attended. I know I was watching the audience and the family as Jeff Bain, who's one of our local members, did the master's part in the Masonic funeral ritual. And Jeff was a very good ritualist, and he was pulling the audience in with those words. And the funeral ritual varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but its essence is, talking about our brother, talking about all of us that survive him. One part of it, at least in the Illinois version, talks about, the angel of death comes when we least expect it, or when at a time which to us seems, I remember the line says, the meridian of our existence. In other words, just when we're at the height of our game, whatever that is in life, you might be swept down, and it's your time to go. So point being, you think about these things and keep them in perspective. And as Jeff delivered those words to the audience, I could see a lot of people reflecting on, the moment and probably their own lives and what was happening in them and where they were and, whatever point in time. But I think it's one of the most public and most powerful statements that our fraternity makes as to who we are and what we are. And as we finished, at least in tradition here in this area, is we all shake hands with the family, all the Masons that were there. So there was 25 guys there. And as they left and exited the funeral home, they all shook hands, in this case with Randy's son, Chuck, who's coming through the degrees. And I just thought, wow, what an impression that's made. He's not even finished. He hasn't been raised yet, but that impression that it's made on him, just like it made an impression on me, 15, 18 years ago when Chuck's grandfather, my uncle, passed away. And so that's something that, if you've not looked at that Masonic funeral ritual, or if you haven't been to one, take some time to do it, because it'll leave a very powerful impact on you. And when you look at the ritual, a lot of those words are going to be very familiar to you, because they're probably part of your jurisdiction's ritual work already. And you may already know part of it. So that's something here in 22, Darin, that kind of made an impact on me as we came to the end of the year, was thinking about that. Not just death. I mean, we have our own lessons in Freemasonry of what that means. But, just a reflection of time, reflection of impact on others, impact on how we can have that good example in the community and what we do for others. So that's a little bit of my rambling, Darin.
Yeah, and just to take it a step further, if not for your uncle's Masonic funeral and you getting interested in Freemasonry, I wouldn't be a Freemason because I don't know if we've told the story, and if we have, I'll tell it again. But I first met Greg through Scouts. Our sons were in the same Tiger Den, and I was one of, if not the only dad who stuck around to help out with the den. And Greg and I got to I think become friends through scouting, and he asked me if I'd be interested in joining Freemasonry. And I was full disclosure raised Catholic, so all of the information that I had about Freemasonry was what a bad thing it was. And obviously I will say I was very much a lapsed Catholic by the time I met Greg. I prefer the term recovering Catholic, but in any case, it's just funny how not only did your uncle's Masonic funeral interest you into Freemasonry, but it then led to me and others that you've gotten to join the fraternity in that way. So I think that's a beautiful story of what Freemasonry is about, and absolutely agree 100% that our funeral ritual is, I think, the perfect embodiment of Masonic philosophy. And it's almost a shame that it's only solely designed to be given at funerals, because I think that a lot of the messages that are within that ritual are ones that can be taken outside of the context of the end of one's life, and more taken in I guess in a way of a memento mori or a carpe diem, where you have to remember that you're going to die, but also to try to make the most of every day that you have and make a positive impact. And that's why I wear my Masonic ring. Case in point, I went to Walmart earlier this evening, and the cashier said, "That's a nice Masonic ring you have." And we got to talking, and she informed me that her father was a Mason, her mother was Eastern Star, she was a Rainbow Girl, and she's also was a member of Eastern Star, and she's in I want to say Monticello. And I had said, well, she was wanting to know if there were any local OES chapters. I said, I don't think there's one in Monticello, but you could probably Champaign or Decatur, which is still a drive for her where she's at. But it's those types of connections, and I've made those before. It's just the casual somebody noticing your ring and striking up that conversation, whether they be Masonic affiliated, a Mason themselves, or Masonic affiliated. And it's just it's that brotherhood, and I'll dare say sisterhood of our fraternity and the appendant bodies that we support, and that really, I don't think there's anything other than maybe scouting. It would be, and I don't have military experience, but maybe also the military. Those would be the only other things I think where you would have that kind of type of common bond with someone, just based upon their affiliation to an organization. So I think, to your point, that Freemasonry is needed now more than ever. I do hopefully think that there's started to be a little bit of a sea change, and I think that some of the nastiness, I'm hoping that some of the nastiness that the modern 24/7 news cycle and political ideologies being displayed, I think we're hopefully seeing a change for the positive in that direction. Of course, let's hope I'm right. I may be wrong. I hope I'm not wrong, but I think that at the end of the day, I think people are just we said that they are sick of what we've had to endure with the coronavirus. And I think also part of this is that I think a lot of people, regardless of political affiliation, are sick of the constant far ends of their particular political philosophies, and that hopefully those voices that for whatever reason were given majority during all this, I think hopefully are becoming more silent, and will hopefully be able to some point where we are able to meet somewhere in the middle, I hope.
Hey, Darin, I think you're right on your observation. The extreme voices are always disproportionately loud, and some people tend to think that, well, that's what everybody's thinking, and well, it's not. I think what's seen in the last 2 or 3 years is so much of the crazy conspiracy theory stuff and all kinds of things, politics, and certainly Freemasonry's been subject to conspiracy theory talks, and we've had podcasts on that here. But I think after a while, people are starting to sift through the garbage and see what's facts. And as the facts become apparent, and I don't mean just politically, just in anything that you're dealing with in life, clarity has a way of bringing change that the extreme voices can't. Because most people really, I've always been convinced, reside in that middle. I don't care what organization it is, whether it's politics, the church, Freemasonry, a social club. The majority of the people are sort of in the middle. If think of that, picturesque bell curve. Most people we're within that range of that median in the middle, and so I think in society we begin to get clarity of these extreme voices and what they're trying to do to affect people's opinions to get their particular means accomplished. And as people learn to say, yeah, I don't think that's true, well, we're going to see, I think, a more of a shift back to the middle. That mainstream is really what made this country great. It's not the extremes. And that's what makes a lot of organizations great. Doesn't mean you're being mediocrity. I'm not saying that at all. It's just there's those people that there's steady change, steady leadership, steady thought processes, thought leaders in the communities. Those are the people that, for the most part, have driven, I think, where this country's gone. They've driven where a lot of organizations have gone. And those extreme voices, eventually they die off because they're not sustainable. And so, Darin, I think your observation is right. I think looking at it from again, an 80,000 foot view, eventually that's only going to help Freemasonry because really, for the most part, that's where we are. We're in that mainstream in the middle because we can include all voices and all kinds of beliefs in what we do. But yet we don't tell you what to think or how to believe or what to do. It's not about that. But yet the kind of people we'll attract overwhelmingly, I think, fit in that, in that mainstream view. It doesn't mean they're not leaders, doesn't mean they're not innovators, doesn't mean that they're not, movers and shakers and get things done, but they're not going to be those extreme ends of the spectrum because they're people that really, I think, care about their communities, want to see things improve, want to see people succeed, want to see their local communities thrive. And that's where Masonry can have a big impact. I've always said, really the practical part of Freemasonry is not in the lodge. The things you're learning there, either through direct education or just by, working with brothers, it's taking those skills and experiences back out into the broader community and applying them. And if you're not, then you're missing something there. And there's a million ways or more to apply those in the community. It could be in your church, could be in your school, could be in your workplace, could be in your social circles, could be in your neighborhood. It doesn't matter. Those things you learn and how to do them, they're going to impact the world. And so I guess, if you see nothing else in all the conversation, from my sort of viewpoint tonight is all these things come together, and that's what makes this fraternity great. There's a lot of work to do. I'm never going to dismiss that, but I'm either foolishly optimistic or something. I don't know, because I just see the good we can do. Darin and I can't do it by ourselves, and as we spoke about earlier, but collectively, there's just so much impact we can have. And again, you can listen to the goofballs about the Freemasons running the world. I tell you what, I sure hope so, because our ideals are what exactly this country and this world need. So I hope Freemasons rule the world, and if all the conspiracy theorists are right, someday maybe we will. So if you're a conspiracy theorist, hang on, because we're coming. Well, we're getting along the hour here. A couple other things, Darin, I had a fall earlier this late summer when I was at the Philmont Scout Ranch. I took a step. We were climbing up a mountainside, and my foot went one way, my leg went the other, so I messed my knee up. So I've got it on the mend, and so I've had six weeks, at least at this point in time, after the surgery, of physical therapy and things like that. And Darin and I've spoken, and I said, it really changes your perspective when you can't drive, because I can't, because it's my right leg, and just how much it changes your perspective on what you appreciate, what you think about, and how you think about it. And so, one quick example, I'd been home 2 or 3 weeks, and Darin comes to see me, and I tell you what, Darin, I was so glad to see you. I hadn't seen anybody except my dogs and, immediate family for 2 or 3 weeks. It is just that little thing, and we sat here and just talked about, all kinds of stuff. We probably should have recorded it as a podcast. We were talking about all kinds of good stuff. But it's just that little stuff like that, again, and Darin gave me a ride. It seems meaningless, but, here he was. He came pick me up. We got to the AMD meeting and put the AMD back on the road of doing good things again. But it's this thing about brotherhood. And it's these little things that where I talked about earlier, how you put them into practice. And sometimes I think we make it too hard, and we're too hard on ourselves, I think, at times too, as a fraternity. But I just think about things like that really change my perspective and really keep me going. And so I'm just about on the mend, but I'm telling you, it does change your perspective on, it's like, oh, am I going to have a ramp to go up because I can't step up the steps and all those kinds of things. So definitely want to thank Darin. Got to really thank my wife, and though she'll probably never listen to this podcast, but one for her, I'd never gotten through any of this. But so as I'm wrapping up 22, I'm looking ahead to 23 and thinking, yep, health matters. And so I think we'll do a podcast on health at some point down the road, Darin. All kinds of things we could spin off of that. And I've actually seen a Masonic podcast, I can't think of the name of it right now, that actually this brother talks about working out and, using some of the principles of Masonry to stay motivated to do, some things for healthy living. So maybe we'll get him on here. But that's just one of the things that we get here, like I said, long in the hour that I've been working on. And so here, Darin helped me, even just a couple simple little things that get you through that period of time.
Well, it's my pleasure to help you. And, we're talking about what we do as Freemasons. This is what we do. We to our brothers, we extend a helping hand when they need it. So, and even though Brooke will probably never listen to this, your wife's a rock star. So I hope that you are spoiling her rotten for Christmas. And Greg's not going to mention it, but he's going to be heading to Tampa to see the Illini playing their bowl game here. When is that? Is that New Year's Day, Greg, or is that
January 2nd? And if you're an Illini fan like Darin and I, this doesn't happen very often. So we get to a bowl game. So
yeah, they hedged their bets. They extended the coach today, so now he'll probably be worth crap. So
yeah,
knowing the Illini as we do,
it's like, Coach Bielema, if you're listening, come on, go Illini.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you need to be a Freemason, because one of your other here at Illinois is a Freemason, so you wouldn't be alone.
Cat's out of the bag now.
But that's going to be a lot of fun, and maybe in 23 we'll do a Masonic sports episode too, because there's obviously been some great athletes that have been members of the craft, and especially in baseball. God, Darin, I love baseball. I don't watch it as much as I used to, but growing up, I was a Cincinnati Reds fan, which is odd when you're exactly in the middle of Cubs and Cardinals country. But in the 70s, the Big Red Machine was just that. It was a machine, and I got hooked on listening to their games, and we went over to Riverfront Stadium, which was where they played at the time in Cincinnati a number of times, and just a good feeling, Tony Perez and Pete Rose and, God, George, or Johnny Bench and George Foster and Tom C, guy just go, Dave Concepcion, and just so many great players. I don't know that any of them were Freemasons necessarily, but anyway. So 89 days to spring from today. So maybe we'll do a baseball one and get us going sometime this winter too.
Sounds like a plan.
Well, Darin, anything else you want to add here as we kind of wrap up on we had a lot of potpourri of discussion, but it's always it's fun to sort of have these conversations unscripted and sometimes without a guest and just see what's going on.
Just once again, want to thank the listeners, without whom we would just be three guys talking amongst ourselves. Not that that's a bad thing, but we do appreciate the support, and it always humbles me when I am out in the wild and somebody tells me how much they love the podcast. So it really hope that everyone that's listening has a very safe and merry holiday season, and we'll talk to you in 2023.
And let me just echo what Darin just said. We so appreciate all of you that take the time to listen. Like Darin mentioned, it is actually very humbling when somebody says, "Oh, well, yeah, I listen to that podcast," and so we really appreciate it. If you have any ideas for podcasts, or if you've got an interesting topic and want to be considered to a guest, go to meetactandpart.com and you can find out where to contact us. We're always looking for new ideas, especially as we get ready to enter our 4th year of this podcast, and we enjoy doing it. I want to thank Darin, who does all the editing on this. I want to thank Bill, who's our marketing and social media guru, because those guys really literally make happen, put it together, get the word out. And I just want to thank all the brethren in general for everything you have done for the craft and have done for Darin, Bill, and I as we have done this podcast. We've had a lot of fun with it. As Darin said, want to wish you a happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, and perhaps any other thing that you may celebrate with your family as we come through this season. So here's to the end of 2022. Looking forward to 2023. And thank you for listening to us on Meet, Act, and Part.
Thank you for listening to Meet, Act, and Part. For more information about our show, visit our website at www.meetactandpart.com. While there, please consider supporting the show by sponsoring us on Patreon. Until we meet again, may we meet, act, and part.